What is up, everybody? Purple and Gold Podcast, Saturday, July 4th, 2026. Happy America 250. I hope everybody is looking forward to celebrating today. I know I will. Um, I'm going to my parents' house for a cookout and a pool day and friends and family, and I hope everybody does the same. I hope you all do it safely. Get your favorite beverage, get more than one of your favorite beverage, crank up Freebird, and have a day for America and celebrate America 250 here on this 4th of July. We are 63 short days away from LSU and Clemson teeing it up in Death Valley. 9 more Saturdays, gang, and we'll be there. However, today's episode of the podcast is about the baseball team and Jay Johnson and the transfer portal. Last night, late in the evening on July the 3rd, Jay Johnson got a huge commitment out of the transfer portal from Oregon outfielder Angel Laya. Laya was a freshman All-American this year at Oregon. He batted .296, 14 homers, 10 doubles. And he is probably the last piece of the lineup puzzle, to be sure, and maybe the transfer portal in general. So let's talk about where we're at. So the transfer portal is now closed. So the remaining kids who are in the portal who have not signed yet, obviously can still find homes, but there won't be any new portal entrants. So let's talk about Laya. So LSU offensively had previously added Dawson Park, the shortstop from Texas State, who now likely shifts over to play third base since Stephen Milam returned. Cade Curlin, the senior second baseman from Florida. Bino Waters, the terrific All-American outfielder from Notre Dame, who was the number one player in the transfer portal. And Jason Wachs, another outfielder from Tulane, who also was a freshman All-American the year prior. So, really, LSU had one open spot, and we thought it would be center field, and we thought it would be between the returning William Patrick and the freshman outfielder Nate Davis, who took his name out of the MLB draft this week and is coming to school. Nate Davis is a tremendous prospect, tremendous defensively, can really run, can really play center field. Well, LSU had kicked the tires on Alec Blair. They had kicked the tires on some other outfielders. And ultimately, those other players went elsewhere. And you thought, okay, LSU's lineup is set. Well, then last night, the boom happened. LSU outdoes Georgia, outbids Georgia, out-recruits Georgia, however you want to say it. And they land Angel Laya. So what does LSU's lineup and defensive alignment look like now? Well, Laya is a corner outfielder, and he's going to be your everyday right fielder. I think this probably more than likely puts Jason Wachs in center and Bino Waters in left. We talked about Dawson Park will likely play third. Milam and Curlin will play short and second. Mason Braun is your likely first baseman, and then Aaron Beatty and Cerna will be the catcher and the DH. So LSU's lineup is set. Should be fairly loaded. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why I think this year's portal class on offense might be different. So last year, when LSU lost Jared Jones and Ethan Fry, among others, they went out, and Jay Johnson admitted he made some mistakes, right? Zach York from Grand Canyon, Braden Simpson from High Point, Seth Dardar from Kansas State, Trent Caraway from Oregon State. They chased power from the transfer portal, and they brought guys from smaller schools in the case of York and Simpson, and quite frankly, they gave up a lot on defense. And if you remember, in the early part of the season last year, even when LSU was playing well, I was one of the few people who was sounding the alarm about LSU's defense, even when they were winning games in the beginning of the season. And ultimately, that came home to be, not the major problem. The pitching was the major problem. But defensively, they were almost as poor defensively as they were great the year before in winning the national championship. Well, what is different about this? Well, what's different about this is Cade Curlin is a tremendous defensive second baseman. You bring Milam back. Dawson Park will be a shortstop and a great rangy shortstop, a true shortstop prospect playing third base. Bino Waters is more than an adequate left fielder. I do think you give up a little bit in center with Walks moving from right to center so Leia can come in, but I think Walks can handle center field. I don't think Jay Johnson would have done this if they thought he couldn't. But here's where I think the advantage comes in now. I think all of these guys, for the most part, maybe not Dawson Park, have done this at a high level. Bino Waters played in the ACC. Laia played in the Big Ten, started all 59 games as a freshman, all of their tournament games as well. Walks has been at Tulane, which if you know anything about the American Conference, you know that's a better brand of baseball. And Walks has played against some Power 4 schools, LSU included, and done well. So I think it's a lot more of proven commodities that they have landed offensively in the transfer portal this year. Another layer to this is, too, I think with Patrick and Davis, assuming they both are healthy and capable, they provide you potential defensive replacements late in games. So if you're ahead in a game and you don't want Laia anymore in right field, maybe you bring in William Patrick or Nate Davis to play center and you kick Jason Walks over to, maybe in the midweek you give Nate Davis or William Patrick the occasional start in center field, and maybe Walks goes to right, Laia DHs, and Aaron Beatty or Cerna gets a night off, right? One of them catches and the other one doesn't DH in the midweek. LSU's going to have some options. They're going to have some things that they can do defensively. And if you really look at this, Dawson Park, Stephen Milam, and Cade Curlin, that's going to look more like Michael Braswell, Stephen Milam, Daniel Dickinson. That's going to look more like what the LSU infield looked like when they won the national championship in 2025. Now on the pitching side, they added Caden Smith, a reliever from South Florida. He played his first year at TCU, his second year at South Florida. Walks are a little high, which I know a lot of people scared to hear that with the way LSU pitched last year. But he does strike out some people. He does have great spin on his breaking stuff. He profiles as a guy who I think can help LSU in a bullpen role. So LSU has added 3 pitchers in the transfer portal. Landon Hood from Gonzaga, who was one of the top pitchers, who was only a freshman All-American. Diego Velazquez, quality arm from USC, who again, only a sophomore. And now they've added Caden Smith. There are a couple of other names out there. Shane Brenham, who's a left-hand pitcher who pitched at Michigan this past year. He was a freshman. He's from Canada. Thomas Allen, who was the big transfer portal entrant right-hand pitcher from Louisiana Tech. All of the major SEC schools were in play for him. He landed at Mississippi State. He won't be at LSU. We'll see if Jay Johnson and Nate Yeske and Jamie Tutko and Josh Jordan unearth anyone else who might be already in. As I said, the portal's closed, but if they unearth anyone else who might be in the portal on the pitching side, I don't see them taking any more position players. Now, what this could also indicate, it could also indicate that maybe LSU is going to attempt to allocate some NIL money to some of the pitchers in this incoming freshman class who may be drafted in an area of the draft where they would have to make a decision. I will tell you this, because I know a lot of people have brought this up on social media. The book is closed on Derek Curiel. The book is closed on Jake Brown. The additions of all of these outfielders, Nate Davis pulling his name out of the portal, 3 starting outfielders in Waters, Walks, and Laia now. Jay Johnson knows those guys are gone. And I think he probably knows guys like Dominic Santarelli and Malachi Washington and some of the other guys on the outfield and position player side from the freshman class. Not all of them, but some of them are probably gone. And so that's why he went the route he went in the transfer portal. LSU's pitching staff next year is going to be the big question mark as we come through the season, right? We're going to largely come back with the same guys, Kason Evans and William Schmidt and Cooper Moore. And, obviously you add Landon Hood and you add Diego Velazquez, but, you're going to lose a lot of people. And so you're going to lose Devin Sharon. You lost Grant Fontenot. He's out of eligibility. People expect Santiago Garcia to sign. Other underneath guys, DJ Primo and some of those other guys have transferred out. So, you're going to expect Danny Lockenmeyer and Cooper Williams and, guys who, didn't perform great last season to do it again. Now, can William Schmidt make a big leap? Sure. Was Cooper Moore more than a quality SEC starter when he was healthy? Yes, he was. If Landon Hood becomes a dominant starter in the fall and pre-camp, does he become a starter, and does Kason Evans go back to the bullpen role that he was so effective at as a freshman in 2025? I think everything's on the table. I do think Jay Johnson is coming back with these guys because he believes in them. Do I think you just say Kason Evans is your Friday guy and Cooper Moore's your Saturday guy and William Schmidt's your Sunday guy and there's no competition? I do not believe that. I believe Reagan Ricken will be in the competition. I believe Hood and Velazquez will be in the competition. If they get some freshman pitchers through the draft, I believe they would be in the competition. I think I know Jay Johnson and Nate Yeskie believe in all of these guys. I don't know if they necessarily believe in them in the exact same roles they were in this past year. That will remain to be fleshed out. But make no mistake about it, Angel Lai is a big get. Bino Waters was a big get. Obviously getting Stephen Milam back. And then, the returning production from Cade Aaron Beatty and Omar Cerna and Mason Braun. These are guys who have done it now. Braun and Cerna did it in their freshman year. Aaron Beatty hit 17 home runs last year. I think LSU's lineup and their team on offense is going to be very good. They were pretty good at the end of this past year offensively. They just couldn't play defense and they couldn't pitch. These guys now will be more well-rounded. Cade Curlin, Waters, Wachs, all of those guys will be much more well-rounded offense, defense. Hopefully the defense helps the pitching staff and LSU can get back to where we all want them to be, which is competing for the national championship. I do have a sneaking suspicion that some of these guys on the pitching staff are going to make big leaps and big jumps. I don't think I believe too much in Jay Johnson and Nate Yeskie and their evaluation and their development to almost stand completely pat pitching-wise, which, they only added 3 pitchers. It tells me that they've either gotten some good intel on some of their freshman pitchers coming through the draft, and or they just really believe that last year was an aberration for some of these guys. And look, William Schmidt was hurt at the end. Cooper Moore got hurt after his 4th start of the year. We know Kason Evans battled through some stuff. Oklahoma won the national championship, and we know they got hot at the right time, and we know they won the national championship. Kason Evans had a 15 strikeout, 3-hit masterpiece